Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Soberful podcast. I'm Veronica.
And I'm Chip.
So we are going to talk today. The title of this podcast is "What is a Functioning Alcoholic?" And we're using that title because it's something we hear a lot. Like a lot of the time, we'll have clients who say, "Well, they'll explain their story and they'll say, basically, I was a functioning alcoholic." And we're using that word really as because it fits our purpose. But what we're really talking about is an alcohol use disorder, right?
Sure. Yeah, and the reason that I think we both decided to do this is that we've never actually explained how clinicians sort of decide that somebody has this disorder or not. We've never actually gone, well, these are the criteria that you need to meet in order to be able to be classified in that area. We've never actually said that. We've talked about all the various aspects of it. But we've never actually said, how do I mean in my work, for instance, how do I as a clinician decide that somebody has alcohol use disorder or whatever word you want to call it? But so I thought it would be interesting if I ran through the criteria with you, and you could go, oh, okay, well, that one, I mean, obviously you've been sober for quite a long time now.
What if I misdiagnosed? What if we find out?
Well, we might do, but if I ask you the questions and explain it a little bit, and then you can go, okay, well, did that apply? Did that apply to me?
Yeah. It sounds good. We're using the DSM-5, right?
DSM-5, yep, updated.
Just explain what the DSM-5 is quickly.
Is Diagnostic Statistical Manual, which is the American psychiatric profession's sort of Bible, whereby any condition, mental health condition that you present to a psychiatrist or anybody in the mental health field, they will be using this manual, which is a huge, great big thing. And it's got everything from, dependency to alcohol to ADHD, neurodiversity, anything, any kind of thing to do with mental health, depression, variations of depression, anything will have. You can't just sort of say to somebody, oh, you're depressed. You've got to base that on evidence. You've got to do an assessment of the person. You've got to get information from the person. And by doing that, you match various criteria that disorder, or whatever we want to call it, manifests. So, the kind of things that we're talking about with alcohol misuse or alcohol misuse disorder are completely different to the ones for depression, or completely different to some other ADHD, for instance. They're completely different criteria. So let's see how we get on, shall we? And and if everybody, probably, if you are listening, it wouldn't be a bad idea if you kind of kept a little kept a note of how many of them you yourself identify with.
Perfect.
Okay, so these are in no particular order. So the first one is using alcohol in higher amounts or for longer periods than was originally intended. In other words, loss of control. In other words, you go out for the night, going to a wedding or something, you say, I'm only going to have a couple, and you're poured into a taxi at the end of the evening.
Oh, God. Yes, all the time. And you know what also used to happen is, towards the end of my drinking, is like we'd maybe go out like on a Thursday night and have to work on the Friday. And it's like we're just going out for a couple, maybe there was football on or something. And I completely believe I would only have a couple. And what would always happen towards the end couple of years of my drinking is, as soon as I had a drink, I'd want cocaine.
Okay,
and I wouldn't be able to stop myself getting cocaine, even though I knew if I did, I wouldn't be able to go to work the next day.
Sure.
So
that alcohol coke thing is really, I'm seeing it so often nowadays. Yeah. It's very rarely coke alcohol. It's practically always alcohol coke. Yeah.
Because cocaine allows you to drink more and for longer.
Yep.
If you're drinking like by 12, 1 a.m., you're really like done, right? But if you mix it with cocaine, you can keep going.
Absolutely.
So yeah, I don't recall ever being able to have one drink unless there was only physically one drink available. But that
Sure.
would always act. I mean, like I think. I mean, I definitely know there's situations where, like, you're somewhere and maybe it's just like there's a couple of drinks and then you're activated and it's like, well, the plan was to go home, but now I'm going to go out and get more drinks somewhere. Like, where's the party kind of thing. So yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes to all
Okay.
of that. Yeah.
That's okay then. So the second one is being unable to cut down on alcohol use despite a desire to do so. In other words, repeated attempts to stop have failed. They've obviously failed because you're sitting in front of a clinician. So they've obviously failed. But so repeated attempts to try and cut down or change your alcohol use in some way.
This I don't massively recall that, and I think the reason is right up until I got sober, I didn't really. I thought my problem was mental health. I didn't like. I knew I shouldn't use cocaine. I did know
Yeah.
that, but I was still of the mind that I just have to figure out how to manage it. So attempts to cut down, like I don't truly recall like trying to do that and failed, but I think I did. I vaguely
I
remember kind of.
I would do things like, okay, I'm only going to do it at the weekends.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
I,
yeah,
I would
yeah,
set
yeah,
my
yeah. Okay, yeah,
okay. I'll
yeah,
only do it.
yeah.
I won't do it till 6 o'clock in the evening.
Yes, yeah,
And with my drugs, I'll wrap them up and I'll put them away and I won't use them. I'll even label the packets, and so that I won't be there. I would never
yeah.
use a packet with Wednesday written on it on a Tuesday. That sort of thing. That
Okay,
would be.
now I'm remembering. So I remember back in the day when I was a student, I lived with my boyfriend. He got into home brewing and
Uh-huh.
he started brewing wine, which was great. And we were like, he brewed all this wine, and we were like, oh my God, that will last us 6 months. Awesome.
Yep.
And then 3 weeks later, it's all gone. And the
Yep.
same thing, we would get the boxes of wine, like, oh, that'll
Oh,
last the
okay.
week. And then
Yep.
by like Sunday lunchtime, it's like, oh, like just so
Shaking
it,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Surely it can't be empty.
And I remember so many times being like, I can't believe that's all gone. Because
Yeah,
and that's the same thing, isn't it? It's like, oh, this
it
amount of
is.
wine that will
Yeah.
last us 6 months. That a
Yeah.
reasonable person,
Yeah.
but then nothing close.
No,
Jeez.
absolutely. So yeah, for me it was days. I would try and do. I'd only use it the weekend, and then the weekend would start on Friday, and then it would start on Thursday, and then it would start on Wednesday, but so that was a classic. And sometimes I would do 3 days not using anything at all, especially towards the end. I would, but then I'd think, okay, well I've done 3 days, I can go back to doing it again now. Okay, so the next one is spending a disproportionate amount of time obtaining, using, or recovering from the effects of alcohol use. In other words, too much time is wasted as a result of alcohol usage. You're thinking about it beforehand, you're planning it during your afternoon, that sort of thing. Does that ring a bell?
Oh my God. Yeah. I would say, like, for me it was the anticipation was the best bit. Like
Right. Yeah, yeah.
knowing you're going
Yeah,
out. And I was
yeah,
like the weekend binge drinker that also kind of started on Thursdays and
yeah.
sometimes Wednesdays. Like the anticipation, like I was so, yeah. I mean, when we talk about bandwidth, I want to say thinking about drinking and recovering from drinking, and drinking took up 50% of my life easily, if
Yeah.
not more. If not more, I would say probably. I would actually probably go to 60 or 70% at certain periods. Like I
Yeah.
worked and I did my laundry. That's about it. Everything else
Yeah.
was
And
drinking.
I think I don't know whether it's specific with drug users. I know that a lot of it's the kind of chase. It's the sourcing it. It's the kind of where can I get
Yeah.
it? Where can I get it?
It's an
And
adventure, isn't it?
yeah. And if you're talking about alcohol, it's like you can waste a lot of time going from one. What do you call them in off? You don't call them off licenses
Liquor
in
stores.
liquor
Liquor
stores.
store.
Go from one liquor store to another because you don't want to go to the same liquor store over and over again. because they might think you've got an alcohol problem. So you would spread your alcohol misuse, and you'd have to go to one shop. Oh, I've been to that shop last week. I'll go to this shop this week. That's time consuming. That takes up a lot of time, and I would definitely think I've got to shop in different places, because otherwise they might think I've got a problem. Yeah, and it took up a lot of time, but definitely mentally, the time that was taken with me thinking ahead, planning it, that would start almost as soon as I woke up. But I mean, I know for some people, I think it kicks in at about lunchtime. They're starting already. Quite a lot of their time, quite a lot of their thinking is spent. Okay, I'm looking at. They're even looking at their clock. I've only got another 4 hours to go, and we're on it, sort of thing. Yeah. Okay.
The thinking bit, it's just really huge. And people
Absolutely.
don't, because people think like, oh, I'm not getting arrested, blah blah blah.
Yep.
But we don't realize that. Like when you first realize like how much of your bandwidth, which is energy and space to think thoughts, is just around alcohol, it's really shocking.
Yep.
Like and that's like not like step back and look at the bigger picture, right? Like I couldn't achieve anything in my life because I just didn't have the internal resources, because my internal resources were spent being hungover and thinking about the amazing time I was going to have drinking next time I drank. Like it's madness. It's mad to live like that.
It is. And that thing you just said about, because the criteria goes, obtaining, using, or recovering from the effects. So that is Monday morning. Well, I only drink at the weekends. Yeah. Oh yeah, what's Monday morning like? Well, actually Monday's pretty crap. Tuesday morning I'm beginning to kind of get my head straight again. But that's a lot of time as a direct result of using alcohol.
Yeah.
It's you may not have drunk anything, but my God, you're feeling the effects of it. You're really feeling the effects of it.
And so my hangovers were appalling. I was hungover. I would throw up pretty much every time I drank alcohol. Like really? I would know that I mean, those questions that you said earlier, like I really knew if I went out that my chance of going to work the next day was 50-50 at best.
Right.
And if I was able to drag myself there, I wasn't an effective employee. At the time, being hungover, like that is a waste of a life.
Yeah. I've often described it to clients as it was like a job. It was like a job, a 24-hour job. Yeah.
Full-time job. Yeah, it was.
Okay, let's have a look at the next one. Okay. Having cravings or a strong desire to use alcohol, and this includes kind of it's a sort of slight variation. Planning, protecting your supply, making sure that you've always got some in. So if the fridge gets low, knowingly avoiding a lack of alcohol. So you protect what's called protect your supply. You notice if there's nothing in the fridge, or you'll go to my classic one was I'll go to a party and I'll hide a bottle behind the sofa because I want my supply to be secure, right? So I'm not going to trust that there's going to be wine left. No, I've got to have my little supply there. So I'm planning that. I'm planning and protecting my supply. Yeah.
Oh my God. Like so many times, like maybe going to someone's for dinner or something, and immediately I think that's not going to be enough wine.
Yeah.
That's just not going to be enough. Like, and then feeling a sense of panic.
Yeah.
Like, and learning from that and like bringing like more than enough alcohol. Yeah. I've done that at party, like hide the good vodka so you can make sure. Oh my God. Like
taking a small bottle in your handbag. Or your purse, or whatever it's called, yeah.
Well, we used to do that when we were much younger. We would have a small bottle of vodka, because it was expensive, right? It's a lot going out, especially when you're a woman. There's a lot of like buying outfits and fake tanning and nails and all that kind of stuff, and taxis and entrances to nightclubs. So we would often hide vodka and just get a Coke and put the vodka in our Coke. But of course, we were measuring it ourselves, so we were putting like significant amounts. Like,
Yeah.
yeah. And you don't realize you're doing that, but all
No.
the different ways that you are always making sure that you have enough alcohol. The other one is pre-gaming. Like I would have to
I thought it was called prinking.
drinking. Maybe, and I don't know.
Prinking. Okay.
Both.
Yeah.
Yeah. Drinking before.
Before you go out. Yeah.
Exactly. Because there
Yeah.
might, like, there's a certain amount of that. Well, and a lot of that was because of the social anxiety. I just need
Yeah.
half a bottle of wine to be able to go to the thing. Or it was like because I don't know, like, if there's going to be enough alcohol. Oh
Yeah.
my God. That would be the
Yeah.
worst thing ever.
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. So that's 4 of them gone. Okay. 5th one. Major obligations like home, work, or family affected by the use of alcohol. So important social, family, occupational, recreational habits are noticeably impacted.
Yeah. I mean, like, they're not.
I mean, yeah. You know, were you a good dad? Yeah, of course I was there all the time. I mean, I hear that a lot. I said that a lot, but it was like, yeah, I was a dad. Once I'd had my alcohol or drugs, and just before I had had too much, there was a little window when I was available as a parent. But children can pick up on the difference in a sober
Yeah.
parent and a drunk parent
Yeah.
much younger than the number of times I've heard people say, well, they're only 12, they don't know what's going on. Really? They know what's going on at
Yeah, I do. Yeah.
2. They probably know
Yeah.
earlier than that. They can sense
Yeah.
something different, but
Yeah.
certainly 4, they know what's going
Mm-hmm.
on. They know what's
Mm-hmm.
going on. And it's like,
Yeah.
so it's not just family, it's social events. You don't go out so much because you don't want to you want to stay at home and get drunk. You don't want to be impacted like that. So and also hobbies, recreational things like, well, I mean, I know I play golf. It's notorious sort of, you don't drink. Anybody drinking during a game of golf would probably be a bit suspect. But at the end, trust me, there's some heavy drinking going on. Okay, number 6. Number 6. Continued use despite negative social, legal, or interpersonal consequences. So it's continued use despite negative consequences such as a DUI, lost jobs, friendships. Yes, I think I can certainly take yes to that. I don't know about you. What are you
Well,
like on?
I always used to say, like, I've never been fired from a job, but that's actually not true. I worked in Gordon Ramsay's restaurant Aubergine in Chelsea just before he
Wow.
became famous, and I was a hostess there. And after about 3 weeks, I worked in the evenings, so that was the perfect job. I didn't know who Gordon Ramsay was.
Yeah.
It was the perfect job because I needed a job that started in the evening, because I really was not good in the morning, and so it was my perfect job. So I remember one day I had a date with this guy at lunchtime, and then I planned to go to work. Well, of course we had a couple of drinks, and then we were going to have a party.
Of course.
So I called in and made up a lie, and they fired. And then I was so hungover the next day I had to call in again, and then they fired me. So I actually did get fired. I think that might be the only time. But I always managed to hold down a job. But the reason for that was I had no one to help me. So I had to work to survive, but I also had to work because that's where the money is. The money's where the alcohol was.
Yep.
So I managed to get my degree. I managed to work, but there was so much chaos.
Yep.
Right? There was just unnecessary drama and chaos and smoke and mirrors and lies and shame. Like all of that was going on. The chaos, and the drama. Oh God.
I definitely lost friendships through my behaviour. I mean, I only have the longest job I ever had was probably about 3 weeks. But I always lost it because of theft or alcohol. It was always something. Okay, so you're going for a yes on that one?
I'd definitely say that's a yes.
Okay, next one. Giving up previously enjoyed occupational or recreational activities, and that's the technical term for that is narrowing your social repertoire.
Yeah.
So it would be you go to the barbecue, but you don't go to the church fundraiser.
Right.
You choose the place where the alcohol, your social
Yeah.
active repertoire, as it's called, your social activities become smaller and smaller, and they are governed by,
Is there alcohol there?
is
Can
there
we drink
alcohol
here?
there? Yeah,
Yeah.
can we
Yeah.
drink there? Yes. Yeah.
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 Yeah. I have the most classic example of this. This
Oh,
was
good.
when I was at university, and I was dating this guy, and we drank, and we went out. We were spending the weekend together, and we went out like on a Friday afternoon and drank all afternoon, all evening. And then Saturday morning, I'd just broken up with a long-term boyfriend, and we just spent the whole weekend drinking in the pub, whatever. So Saturday morning, we woke up, we were in London, and he said, so what do you want to do? And I was like, what a strange question. What do you mean? We could go to the pub. I'm like, what's a strange? It's like, yeah, like we could go, there's that thing on in London, we could go to that, we could go. I'm
Yeah.
like, I'm in like living in one of them, probably the best city in the world, I think. Definitely one of the best. Tons
Yep.
going on in the 90s. And we were both looking at each other, and I was like, well, we'll go to the pub for lunch, right? And
Yeah.
you just stay there. He was looking at me like, well, why would you do that? Because there's all these
Yep.
other things we could do. And I was looking at him thinking, why would you want to do any of those things when you could go to the pub at lunchtime?
Yeah.
And needless to say, we broke up. So, yeah, I was not interested. And this is interesting because this is where a lot of people fool themselves. I was not interested in anything that wasn't alcohol involved. But what we do is this is how we can lie to ourselves. Like, I want to tell this story. I have this client a while ago, and she was sober. She stopped drinking, but she was still very kind of tentative. And she had this annual event where she would go with all her friends and her husband to this music festival for 3 or 4 days, and they would camp. And they'd been doing it for years. It was a tradition. They'd bring all their food and drink, and it was like this mass party, and she loved it. And she's like, I don't want to miss out on that. Can I just not like have that weekend? And so I was like, let's break this down. And we broke it down. And what actually happened is she would go there, everyone would get really drunk, inevitably lose your friends and wander around, talk to strangers, miss the band, be sleeping in a tent, hungover, really hot, feel like utter crap the next day. I'm like, so basically you pay all this money to go and be like sleep in a tent for 3 nights and be really hungover. Why don't you just stay at home, put the radio on? Like,
yeah.
So we will engineer events and go, oh, we're doing this amazing thing. But really, it's about the drinking at the event.
Yes.
But we're telling ourselves, we go to the music festival, we go to the thing, we do that.
Yeah.
But really, it's about the alcohol.
Yeah.
Right? And, we're really good at doing that.
Yeah. And we'll go to a gig, but we'll spend half the gig standing at the bar waiting to get served.
100%. Yeah. That was one of my big realizations when I got sober, was because I love live music, going to gigs. I've seen a lot of people, and starting back doing that and having that realization that the people I were with kept missing the best songs because they were either at the bar or they were in the toilet because they were at the bar. And I was like, that was when I had that first thought of, I'm having more fun than they are. Yeah. And that was a big like, ooh, that's like, I never thought about that.
I know cinemas have changed slightly, but you could combine quite a few of these in going to the cinema, but you'd have to take alcohol in with you. You obviously couldn't go to the cinema without alcohol, so you'd sneak some alcohol in somehow. And just, as you said, I live in and work in London. How many times did I go to galleries or museums or things? Some of the most beautiful art in the world is here.
Well, it's endless, the things to do in London. Endless. Yeah, and so many of them are free.
Yeah, exactly. But if you can't drink there, well, there's no point in doing that, is there? Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so you're going in that one, I take. Okay.
When I just want to say this. When I used to work in London, I had to practice at Harley Street, and I would sometimes have like a couple of hours to spare in London. Yeah. I would there was always like a gallery or museum nearby, and I would because they're all free in England. Yeah. Which is such a beautiful thing. I would just pop into whatever was nearby and just look around and just be like, oh God, like how amazing is this that I can spend 2 hours at the British Museum or the whatever. Yeah. Just and then go and do a bit of work. I was like, this is like, what a treat. It's amazing. I do that
I
all the
know. I
time. It
mean,
was lovely.
I work at the bottom of High Street now, and
Yeah.
the Wallace collection, which is the most amazing collection of stuff. It's like 10 minutes walk away, and I can do it in my
Oh,
lunch break. Yeah, yeah,
beautiful. Like what
yeah.
a treat that is. That's food for the soul, isn't it?
I know, exactly. But okay, all right, then let's move on. Using alcohol in physically dangerous situations, finding yourself in dangerous, hazardous, or risky situations. Now, this one I think applies to you're getting in a car, you're all on a thing. Oh, the driver looks a bit trolleyed. He looks a bit drunk, but never mind. Or she looks a bit drunk. Never mind, we'll all be all right, but don't worry about that. Or the classic one for me was going to buy drugs and couldn't get it where I normally got it. They said, well, why don't you try this place? They said, oh, why don't you try this place? And then I suddenly find myself in a room and I'm out of my depth. I'm suddenly realize I'm in the wrong place. This is not where somebody like me is supposed to be. This is heavy gangsters, and I'm feeling frightened and I'm feeling dangerous. Or you're putting yourself on offer to go and buy some drugs around the corner down an alleyway, and I'm sure that's such a dangerous thing for any gender to do, but to go, yeah, come around the corner and I've got something for you, and it's like, that's a dangerous situation, dangerous driving, knowing that, those sort of things. So did you ever get yourself into a situation like that?
I want to say there was a couple of times towards the end of my drinking when blackout drinking happened right at the start of my drinking and right at the end of my drinking. Right at the start, when I was 15 years old, I was in a pub and I went into blackout, and I woke up outside in the gutter, covered in my own vomit, with the landlord throwing a bucket of water over me. And right at the end of my drinking, going out and getting downing a bunch of shots, leaving with some random guy I just met, and waking up about 17 hours later.
Yeah.
Nothing happened.
Yeah.
And thankfully, he was an angel and took care of me, complete stranger.
Yeah.
So putting myself in, really, as a young drunk woman, that's the one that gives me chills. Yeah. I never had a car when I was drinking because I couldn't get my shit together to get a car. But I did, when I lived in Key West, I did have a moped, and you can drive them without helmets, and they only go up to maybe 35 miles an hour, but still enough to kill you.
You can do a lot of damage at 35 miles an hour.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And I've driven that drunk a few times. I mean, I think there's other things as well, but yeah. Oh my God. That's so scary.
Yeah. I mean, I never got caught for drink driving, but my God, I had one crash, stoned out of my head. Not a bag. It wasn't a bag. It was just a sort of junction thing. Nothing. No great speeds. Middle of time. They're trying to minimise a car crash, but never mind. But yes, definitely drove a lot when I should not have been anywhere near a wheel, but didn't get caught, fortunately. Okay, so I think we've agreed we've both put ourselves in dangerous situations, right?
We just are able at the time to rationalise. We just rationalise so well that it's never. We never think it's anything to do with drinking. It's like we just rationalise. Like I
handle my alcohol better than other people.
I hadn't had anything to eat. I hadn't eaten anything, right? That was the problem. Was I hadn't eaten anything. That was the problem. The delusion.
I operate better with a couple of drinks. It makes me a bit sharper. I work, and you look at all the field tests, and they show people with one drink trying to do it, and they, 2 drinks, and they just haven't got a clue. But I would say, no, it just makes me it gives me that little bit of an edge. It just makes me, I'm a bit more on the ball, As you say, it's delusional. It's delusional.
Yeah.
Okay, moving on. Okay. Continued use despite psychological or physical problems probably caused by alcohol. So still drinking despite being given specific medical or health advice against doing so. So maybe bad liver test readings, problems with your throat and you're being advised not to drink, overweight. In some cases, can be caused by drinking. 20. You drink 12 pints of basically liquid sugar in the form of beer every night, and you're going to put on some weight. Although, of course, we get delusional there as well. Well, I go running as well, and you do get some people who, you think running.
I
Oh,
eat
blimey.
really healthily. Everything
Yeah.
I eat is organic.
Yes.
I
Yeah.
green juice.
Yeah.
I just want to say this, guys. I hear this a lot. Like I'm actually really healthy. Like I do exercise, I do yoga, I do juicing, I have vitamins, I take this. Irrelevant. It's all
Yeah.
completely wiped out by the fact that you're putting one of the most toxic substances in your body. I hear
Yeah.
that all the time, and it's BS. I was thinking when you're saying that, I didn't get like a health warning from my doctor because I wasn't at that point. But actually, I was on lots of mental health medication, like I was on Valium and antidepressants and all kinds of things. And I think it was like, just like, oh, and don't drink. And it was on the labels. And it says on there, don't mix with alcohol. And I would look at that and think, oh, that doesn't apply to me.
Yes.
That doesn't apply. That would apply to you, but that doesn't apply to me because I need to have a drink before I go to this event. So yeah, I can answer a yes to that.
Yeah, I mean, did any of us end up in A&E because we've cut ourselves, or we've drunk, or maybe we've drunk too much and we've ended up in A&E and fallen over, had accident. We've tripped up and fallen drunk. That's they'll be saying, well, you drank too much, but it's been given specific medical advice. Yeah, definitely. Okay. This is one that actually usually comes first. I don't know why I put it down at the bottom here, but an increase of tolerance, requiring greater quantities of alcohol to achieve the same effect. In other words, needing more to get intoxicated than you did in the first place. So whereas I remember the very first time I got really drunk on alcohol, it was one bottle of wine, and I was so sick. I couldn't, I was just unbelievable. I was about 16. I drank a whole bottle of wine. I was in Germany on an army base, and I remember could not feel iller on one bottle of wine. It's 12 units. That was like, at the end of my drinking, I was doing that I was going to say, well, 3 cans of special brew. That's the same. I was doing that before 11 o'clock in the morning. And I was fine. I was fine. I was walking. My tolerance was absolutely huge. And you get, again, people, that's where the delusion comes in. People go, yeah, but I can tolerate a lot, I can. And you do get people who can tolerate incredible quantities, a bottle of vodka a day. They can function. Well, they can't function, but they can appear to function. They're not falling over in the street and sort of, they're kind of functioning in some level, but they drink. Their tolerance has got, and the thing about tolerance is that I do want to add, it always gets bigger. It doesn't matter what you do, your tolerance will always increase. It will never diminish. It will always increase, whether it's alcohol, cigarettes, heroin, ketamine, coke. What got you off at the beginning will not get you off at the end. And it always increases. It never, ever decreases.
That's so funny because you know what I know? I mean, definitely with alcohol, but you know what I noticed that the most was with cigarettes.
Yeah.
Is like getting to a pack a day. I remember getting to a pack a day when I was in my early 20s, and then getting to a pack a day plus an extra 2. Like I loved cigarettes.
Yeah.
Loved smoking.
Yeah, I did as well. And I think it's interesting as well when it's a good example of when people give up smoking. Hardly anybody does smoke now, thankfully. They vape a lot, but but actual cigarettes, fewer and fewer people doing it. But I would know people give up smoking for a year and then they'd start smoking again for some reason. It didn't take them 20 years to get back to 20 fags a day. They were there within right back. Maybe one day, 2 days, but then within 3 days, they're right back to where they were. It
Oh.
didn't take this, and the same applies to alcohol. You can give up alcohol for 5 years. It's not going to take you 15 years to get up to a level of tolerance that you ended up with. It's going to be right back there within days.
Isn't it kind of like funny when you think, like, I cannot believe how I used to live. I used to, if I woke up in the night and went to the toilet at 3 a.m., I'd have a cigarette. And then when I woke up
Yeah,
first thing in the morning, I would have a cigarette. First thing.
yeah,
Like, and that was like another, like, it crept up. It used to be like first cigarette would be after lunch, and then it got to like 6:30 a.m., or even
yeah,
the middle of the night. I mean, it's insane.
yeah,
Yeah, and I always like drank until there was no alcohol left from the
yeah,
word go. Like, I just drank, and that definitely increased. Like the wine would get, we'd buy in bulk, and it would get finished
yeah,
earlier and earlier and earlier.
yeah.
Oh God, what a horrible way to live. I'm so glad that's over.
Okay, well, the
Oh.
last one is, and this is the one that people always say, well, at least I don't do that. Showing signs of withdrawal such as tremulousness, shaky hands when
Yeah.
efforts are made to stop, early morning vomiting, tremulousness, sweating, unable to settle or sleep. That's usually the one. Tremulous hands, that's the one that people say, well, at least I don't do that. And yet, actually, if you look at people carefully, you'll often see that they are not quite as steady as they like to think they are. But that is, I mean, I certainly went into withdrawal, which is, and showed symptoms of it when I was using drugs very quickly. But I perhaps I did. I don't know. But I know lots of people who do get very, very shaky indeed. Yeah, physically shaky.
I used to throw up, like, and I nearly every time I drank, and I used to throw up to the point where it was like black bile.
Oh,
It was
nice.
really
Yeah,
gross. It was really
yeah,
gross.
yeah, yeah,
I wasn't fit, but I definitely had shaky hands from just being so hungover, like being
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
generally shaky.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh
So
God. What's the
those
diagnosis,
are
Chip?
there's okay. So just quickly, loss of control, repeated attempts to stop that don't work. Lots of time is wasted in as a result of alcohol usage. Planning and protecting your supply, knowingly avoiding a lack of alcohol. Important social, family, occupational things avoided. Continued use despite negative consequences. Narrowing of your social repertoire. Finding yourself or doing dangerous and hazardous things. Still drinking despite medical advice. And needing to get more, your tolerance increasing. Right. Okay. So, if I am a clinician, in order for me to be able to make a diagnosis that this person is a functioning alcohol misdependent person, these criteria have to have happened within the last 12 months.
Mm.
That's the good news. The bad news is you only have to exhibit 2.
That is
That,
the mic drop. Yeah. That only 2 of those things to get the diagnosis of alcohol use disorder.
to be diagnosed with alcohol misuse disorder, you must meet any 2 of the below within the same 12-month period.
Wow.
Very
Yeah.
few people I see don't tick practically all of them. A few might have stayed clear of tremulousness, but I don't know many people who come to see me. And the thing is that this is where we're trying to also cover the section of functioning alcoholic, or functioning, whatever we want to call it, functioning alcohol dependent. Functioning. The people who come to see me have got jobs, they've got homes, but they're exhibiting all these criteria. They are, they're not on a park bench in Shepherd's Bush. They've got families, they've got children, they've got jobs, they've got cars, they've got everything that you would think, but they are ticking almost every single one of those criteria. And that's why the term functioning alcohol dependent, functioning alcohol misuse is, you've got to be very careful that you don't kid yourself that you're not like that person over there, because they are, look at him, he's walking along the street with a bottle of, and mine's in my briefcase, which is a very nice leather briefcase, but he's got a carrier bag, for God's sake. I mean, it's just, you've got to be very careful, because the thing is, people go, well, hold on a minute. I've heard people say to this, people go, oh, hold on a chip. That's a bit extreme. You're being a bit extreme. But actually, normal people, of which there may be a fewer now than there used to be, normal people don't get absolutely drunk at a wedding and spoil it for people. One or two do, but other people just have a nice time and get on with it. Normal people don't plan how much they, okay, we're going to go out to the party. Have you got the alcohol sorted out? Have you got the alcohol?
Yeah.
Normal people don't do that. They just turn up, and maybe there might be a glass of wine. Normal people don't. If they have a road accident, they go, oh my God, I don't know, but they just don't do these things. But we think, well, everybody does these things. Surely everybody does. Surely everybody gets, only goes where there's alcohol available. Surely everybody drinks far more than they used to at the beginning, but they don't. Normal people don't. And so I think it's, I hope we've managed to indicate to people that although you may have a home, and I hope you do, and a job and all those things that go with it, it does not prevent you from having alcohol misuse dependency.
The word functioning alcoholic is really another rationalization, isn't it? It's just a rationalization that
absolutely,
I'm not as bad as those people.
Yeah.
And that's kind of that's a big, big part of this condition is the self-delusion. How we, and that whole exercise that we did there, where you just said you only need 2.
Yeah.
Like, that is the indication that there's a problem. And I think a lot of people listening to this will fit that. And hopefully this will clarify any doubts that you have. Because I'm going to say, first of all, if you're listening to a sobriety podcast, there's your first clue.
Well, exactly. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I mean, exactly that. I mean, people often go, do you think I've got a problem? Well, do you know what? Not many people come to see me because they haven't got a problem with alcohol. Not many people think, not many people. Nobody.
Has anyone in your entire career ever, no one has ever shown up in front of us by accident, ever? Have you ever said, like...
Yes, I have.
Really?
One kid, he was about 16. His mum had caught him smoking one joint. It was probably the first joint he'd ever smoked in his life. And she dragged him into focus. And I said to her, he's not got a problem. But other than that, never, ever, ever have I had somebody sitting in front of me who did not have a problem.
Get the details and go, oh, you're fine.
Yeah. What are you doing here? What extraordinary idea.
This was a great episode. I hope it helped you clarify stuff. And don't worry, if you've answered a lot of yeses, there is a way out. You can get help, you can get sober, and a sober life is an amazing life. And if this podcast is about anything, it is about letting you guys know that that you don't lose or miss out on anything when you get sober. So
absolutely.
Thank you, Chip. That was great.
Thanks.
And we look forward to seeing you soon. Let us know what you think about the podcast. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any episodes. Take care, and we'll see you soon.
Bye-bye.